That's one of the flaws. For those of you that notice, this JFS boot up is a little bit different than what you're used to seeing. Clayton's gone.
Yeah, I missed it.
It's one of the things that David mentioned.
Yeah, I kept wondering, why do I see you constantly have cross-link files?
Because you do.
Yeah.
Why?
I don't like that.
Yeah, that was a nasty one. It took us a while to figure that one out.
Well, I thought there's...
No, you knew something was wrong. It's the same thing that Drury lost his development drive.
Yeah.
And we're working on trying to recover it for him so he doesn't have to rebuild it in Japan. And it's got a problem where checklist claims that it's okay when it's done. And, you know, we told him how to do the slash O, he's got to use JFS and all that. But it doesn't now afterwards. So one of our jobs after Warpstock is to come back and take a real good look and understand why it's not mounting, so that we can go into the code and David can fix that.
Steve?
Yes?
Seeing that boot up reminded me several times lately I've had to, well, the computer's hung and I've had to shut it down. When I go to restart, I've got like C through J, JFS file.
What do you see through J where?
Drives.
You don't have them all? Or you have more than you should, or what?
Well, what I'm saying is this, they're normally there, okay?
Where is there?
On my computer.
On his hard drive.
I mean, on what display? I know there
Are you talking about boot?
I'm just talking about that they're present on the computer, and I'll get to the rest of it here in a second.
Okay.
Okay. When, now I've never, you know, since in a lot of these cases, I've only ever done anything with, say, C and D. Okay. When the computer is shut down, and I mean, when I have to, when I have to hit the power button and turn it off, then when I come back up on these JFS drives, every single one of them has to do the whole read the thing.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, if you use the power button to shut down, that's exactly true.
But if I've never opened them, why are they?
Because they were mounted.
You don't know if you've never opened them.
I don't guess
Obviously,
the
they're
machine
open.
ain't open them automatically, the operator.
They're mounted.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You're probably running a
like-
widget that's going out there and checking free space on them. There's about 1,000 different ways you might
Well,
open
like with
it.
HPFS, you didn't have to do that. It would only do the ones that had been open, that had been accessed.
Back in the days when you used HPFS, you probably had a C drive and maybe, if you're lucky, a D volume defined.
No,
Just
I
do
had
things
2 or 3.
I don't have this happen. That's why I'm confused, because he's saying it should be happening. And I have crashes all the time because of video drivers that are just, you know, not compatible, or because I've got a really old machine and the hardware is going down. Okay, so it crashes, and it's rare for it to do anything other than read the log.
But how long does it take to read the log?
But that's not what he said. That's not what he said. You misunderstood what he said.
Reading the log takes 2 or 3 seconds per drive.
It takes my logs, if I'm on a crash, all it does is read the logs, but it takes a minute to read the logs.
Depends
You mean all
on the
of them
drive.
together?
Yeah.
You probably have a
No,
couple big
each
drives,
one.
Yeah.
a couple terabyte drives, or half
Well,
terabyte, with
it's-
lots of files.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. The drive that I have that has about 1.5 million files on it, the log redo takes on the order of 30 to 40 seconds, and it's not a real fast drive. And that's
Well,
not with the secondary stuff. It's
For mine, it takes about a minute for each one of those drives to check itself out.
Well, you should take a look at your system. Make sure you haven't forced the full check disk, which is possible. You got take a look at your config sys. Well, there's something wrong in your system if it's doing a full check disk every time.
No, it's not a check disk. It's just reading the log.
Yeah, he's talking about the same thing.
What log are you talking
The
about?
JFS log is just
the
journal log. It's just a journal.
So you just have
But that's
so
check disk.
Yes,
You may
yeah.
not understand it, but that's check disk. That is a phase of check disk.
Yeah, and it only happens if the computer is shut down abnormally.
Well, that's not quite true. It actually, in your version of JFS, it does the log redo every time, even when it shouldn't.
Okay, well, then if it reads the log every time, it takes
Normally,
2 seconds or 3 seconds normally, and if the computer shut down abnormally, it takes a minute for each
Right,
drive.
it's just like JFS. It's just like HPFS. The difference being when you had HPFS go down like that, it would sit there and had to do a full check disk across the entire disk. Okay?
Yeah.
And what was happening was it was marked as, if the drive, if you were booted up and it was mounted, when you crashed, it was still marked as dirty.
Yeah.
And so they had to do the check disk. The difference with JFS is it does the same thing as that mark of being dirty or not. And then when it hits there, if it's dirty, it just checks the log. As long as the log says everything's okay, it just skips on through. Ever so often though, the same, and it turns out it's largely because of this bug they're talking about, it sits there and goes and does a full check disk because the log didn't check out.
F5 or
F5.
slideshow. Up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
computer shut down abnormally. Every single one of my drives.
You see how often I use this?
It doesn't.
Oh,
Me too. I was like,
normal.
what? And
That is
then
normal.
he showed me a journal.
Mine does the
Like,
same thing.
If you don't access it ever,
I
why
never
why does
access-
it mark it dirty?
First of all,
Because it was mounted.
obviously you think you're not accessing it, but it thinks you are.
Yeah. Yeah.
If it's not marked dirty, it's not going to check this,
Take
unless
off-
you have a plus in front of there.
Yeah, take out the drive letter and set the then.
They obviously didn't have to go through the full.
Yeah.
Yeah, I understand it's getting a full. and that-
Take out the drive letter as
He's
an
not,
experiment,
he's just getting the log.
and then it'll skip
He's
it.
just getting the
He's,
extended
Take
log.
off
he's
the
actually
drive.
interpreting.
Yeah, go
that
into
as
LVM
like
and
this.
remove the drive
It
letter
sounds
from
to me like
the
he's
drive,
saying-
and one of the LVs.
Just the drive letter.
One of the
not-
JVS drives. Just take the drive letter off, make it no drive
Yeah, because they've all
letter. And then,
accessed
But
by
no,
some.
next time it
but he
happens, don't let it
specifically
skip
said
that
it's just
one.
the log piece.
Oh, okay, all right, it's not clear.
then it really won't.
What we'll do is we'll kill the thing and we'll watch it happen.
Well, I'm not sure what that
We'll
will
say,
prove.
is that normal or not? That's the
And
first-
get started on
Your
this
R-axis
section,
is the
please.
other one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because
See,
the
Oh, this is gonna be 5 minutes, no one's
It's just like a bug that is being
the
marked
following
dirty if you haven't
section
done
is like
anything to that
stuff
drive.
coming from the other side of the world, so
If
we
you
want
haven't done
to
something.
make sure
Yeah,
that
but
that
it's
true,
early
yeah.
for him, he's like 8
He's
hours,
saying you did.
6 hours, 7 hours behind.
I'm saying I have like 7 drives.
Yeah,
Yeah, we're
I
gonna have to
haven't
get
been
him
to
up
4 of
early.
them, and it'll still check them.
well, he says you have been there.
Okay, good. Now, let's go through this, guys. You'll be
Just
more
take everything off your
interested.
desktop.
Sorry?
Or take everything off the desktop. You know, don't load it.
Very
Don't
good.
load
Okay.
the push off.
We'll take this up.
Yeah.
Because I want to hear what you say.
Okay. As you guys probably know, I am not Lewis. I'm sort of a sock puppet today because you couldn't come. Okay. And hopefully I'll be able to answer all your questions and not lead you astray too far. But anyhow, Arca is basically a new group that's focused on OS2. Our focus is basically to bring everybody together, developers, users, and basically provide one-stop shopping for everything that's needed to keep OS2 alive, with a focus on running on raw hardware. We fully recognize that virtuals make sense for a lot of situations, and we have the knowledge to handle that too. But we feel the best way to keep OS2 alive for as long as possible is to focus on real hardware. Now, we're trying to fill in the blanks in certain areas. As all of you know, ECS releases have a very long cycle. And you need updates. You need updated through applications, drivers, and stuff like that. Arca is going to provide that. David gave you a pretty good idea of what's in the pipeline, what's done, what's ready to be released, and basically, the only thing that's holding it up is it takes a lot of time to start a company. Everybody says it'll be easy, but once you actually do it, you find out it's not. I told them it would take a long time. No, it won't be hard. And hey, I've done it before. I know it takes a long time. The idea is that we're going to have centralized distribution of updates and fixes, one-stop shop for support, and also and access to developers and so on and so forth. And we are focused on development, so hopefully that means we'll actually do something. And as I said, we're focused on running the OS2 on raw hardware. Any questions?
How does that fit with Mensis? Like, we go.
Well,
we get
Mensis,
fixes.
okay, well, as Mensis, as you know it, doesn't exist. It's now XEU, and we're going to work, we plan on being able to work with XEU. No reason not to. As long as we can all come to an agreement, and we're all good people, so it shouldn't be too hard. It's just, you know, it's just details. But basically, Mensis owns Ecom Station. They're the guys that can do OS releases and distribute copies. You know, unless Arca, by some magic, gets an OEM agreement for OS2, it's not going to be distributing anything. It could, but it would be illegal. And you know, maybe you can do it in Europe, you can get away with it, but you can't do it in the US. And Arca is, despite the weird name, I did not get to help select the name. Of course, I didn't get to help to select the Ecom Station name. I just said I didn't like it. But now everybody's used to it. Except when they keep asking about Serenity.
Yeah.
Is Serenity still running development? I don't think so.
Why are they on the website?
Well, you know what it is. The folks that ask this are the folks that are getting new hardware after running OS2 off in the corner for 15 years.
Yeah.
And they come out to see what's out because they need new hardware. And the last name they knew was Serenity, so that's what they go looking for.
Well, and
So it was actually a good idea that you guys kept your name because they could find you.
I never really saw anything that talked about, you know, like a public announcement that Serenity had sold out to Mensis.
It was quiet, but it was there. And also, you have to, you know, it's like everything else. The internet's a big place. Things get said unless you happen to be looking. And there was nothing that really needed to be announced because it was a slow process in some ways. You know, over time, you know, Mensis helped more and more. At the time, they were more of a development shop. So they helped with the development. Roderick did a lot of that. Joachim did a lot of that. You know, they were responsible for a lot of the installer you see in 2.1. Me, I got to jump it up and down until, I told Kim Chung to do it that way all along.
Okay.
But they didn't listen to me, so they did it Kim's way for 1.0 and 1.1. But, you know, so those things, these things happen over time. And also the thing is, it really didn't matter to the end user. From the end user.
Well, it does if you want to know who to point to, who to direct your.
But my point is, the Serenity name still exists. Somebody goes Googling for Serenity. They find Mensis. They go buy their update. They install it. If it installs nice, they go away until they need more hardware. If it doesn't, they put in support tickets and you fix it. And the process works. You know, it's not like selling soda where you got to keep telling people they need to buy it. The marketing is just, it's important, but not that important.
Question, please. Regarding the raw hardware issue, is the potential obstacle that they're going to be using different CPU chips which have different instruction sets? Is that the problem?
No.
What is the problem?
Unless you're going to fund a very large group of developers on the order of about 1,000, that's not going to happen.
So what is the potential obstacle in the future?
Which one would you like me to start with?
Well, we'll start at random.
Well, first thing is, you know, the ARM chipset may supplant the Intel chipset.
Well, that's what I meant.
In terms of
Different
volume.
instruction set? Is that the problem?
Well, that's one problem. There's also this thing called hardware. The buses, bit width, I/O structures. You know, it's just there's an infinite number of things that can make it hard to run OS2. UEFI, GPT. The fact that somebody decided to stick a 2 gig video window at the 512 megabyte range, you know, just stuff. You know. The point is, the best thing to say is it's a general problem. You fix the specific ones you can. Things like when they take out 32-bit, when they decide to do Intel chipsets that no longer do virtual 8086 mode or 32-bit instruction set, then you're going to be in trouble. You will be running in a virtual if you want to run OS2 apps. Because the kernel is simply not going to be 64K unless you are independently wealthy like Mr. Ballmer and want to fund the development. It's just not going to happen. It's just too much work. And there's not enough people with the skills and interest to do it. Any other questions? Now that's not necessarily a bad thing. You know, it doesn't mean that we aren't going to be able to run OS2/ECS on raw hardware probably for the next 5-10 years. We may have to be a little selective about which systems you run on. But, you know, I deal with industrial equipment, and some of that stuff still requires ISOBUS. And I can go out and buy ISOBUS motherboards if I need them with 16 serial ports, and, you know, my customers are happy. but it's not commodity stuff you're going to buy at big box, at a big box store. And that'll be the same thing. Eventually, it'll be just a little bit harder to find motherboards that are sufficiently current that you actually want to run multi-boot so you can run OS2 natively on it. You know. But the time when that can't happen at all is far away. Think about the fact that most of these boxes here, except for the UEFI systems that don't have a compatibility layer, they'll run DOS. And we're talking 30 years out. So, you know, it's a problem, but not a problem. Okay, what are we going to do? Well, time frame is fourth quarter of 2014. Here we are, as usual. But as David said, the website is within days of being live. You go look at it now, and it's pretty full. You know, they don't have the shopping cart running or anything yet, so you can't really order, but it's in process. Content's getting there. Over time, that content will expand, but it's going to be one place. If you go to Arca, you will be able to find what you need in the way of driver updates. You will be able to put your support tickets in. They will get answered. If you need support subscriptions, you will be able to get them and all that sort of stuff. And in terms of how things are going to be distributed, we're going to try to make it as convenient as possible. There'll be pre-built WPIs for those that need them. There's probably going to be more a focus on RPM Yum as we go, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later. And the fact those of you that say that RPM Yum doesn't work, not a problem. We'll get fixed. Just like ACPI got fixed, RPM Yum will get fixed. Everything has a priority, and we don't have infinite developers or infinite resources. Yes?
So is this going to replace going to Mensis in your download section to get?
Don't know. That's up to XEU. They have a lot of packages that they have the rights to sell. I can go to BMT Micro and buy DFC. You know, there's lots of places to get OS2 software. You know, you go where you'd like to go. It's the customer's choice. We don't have any.
About getting the latest ACPI or something like that. Is it?
That if Mensis wants that available, or XEU wants it available, they'll make an agreement. First of all, it's open source. They can always build their own release. A lot of what we do is open source. ACPI, sort of open source, sort of not open source because of the Intel license. That's the one we use. We don't use the GPL license for that. But that's actually sort of a requirement of the fact that the ACPI is required to be built with the DDK. So only someone with a DDK license is actually allowed to build ACPI. Now, you know, you can ignore all that stuff if you want. And the chances of actually getting in trouble by ignoring it, who knows? But the point is, you know, we choose not to ignore it. But if, you know, it's up to XEU, and that's stuff that that's Lewis and Menso's discussions. You know, I don't make those decisions. And you know, while I'm associated with Arca, I don't work for them. I may, but you know, I don't. But they're my friends. Any questions? Okay, who's doing this stuff? Well, you know, you've already seen presentations by a bunch of them. You know, Lars may be doing a little USB stuff. David does a lot. David's our volume coder right now, and that sort of stuff. We've got volume coders on Firefox and things like Flash and all that, and OpenOffice.org. They're sort of a little invisible now because essentially, you know, development stopped for a while at Mensis. And they weren't really talking to the community. And, you know, based on what Menso tells me, I think we'll know a little bit more about what XEU is going to do because they're going to get a little more visible. You know, posted in news groups, people will be there answering questions and stuff like that. But I can't talk for them because, you know, I know what I think they should do, but, you know, it's their decision.
What is this Bitwise company like? Where did they come from? Who pays them?
Bitwise has been around forever. Sylvan Shur is the owner. They own Enjoy. They're a major developer of Firefox. They're not sure exactly whether they're a major developer of OpenOffice.org. I'm not sure if Yuri's actually associated with them in terms of business sense. You know, who pays who and all that sort of stuff. But, and the other thing, and also, Bitwise Works is also Aora. What's his Swedish company's name? A-H-O-R-A, A-R-R-A? Aura? Is it Aura? I'm not sure how he pronounces it, not being Swedish. But anyhow, Bitwise Works is sort of a rebranding of the Aura company, which is, and it's their OS2 arm. But what Sylvan does is he does a lot of embedded systems and things like that. He's put a lot of machinery in various companies that I've been involved in helping in getting the drivers just right, so it worked for that weird hardware that the customer selected and said you must run on. Because that's the way it usually works. It's just like end users go out and buy hardware and say, I need to run ECS on this, okay? These big customers that would do a massive search to pick a given chipset to put in a product. They go out for their embedded systems and they just buy whatever they buy off the shelf and say, well, I'm going to run OS2 on it, or ECS. And it gets fun. You get to do the same thing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Although you sound like you got a little bit more choice in the selection process than the last one.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
yeah,
which helps. Not enough.
It's always, yeah, but it's just the way it is. They're the customer. You do what they want if you can. And the fact that it may be a little harder than it would be otherwise, cost of doing business.
Yeah.
So, like, as you say, there are some new names. Folks that, and the reality is, there are only new names to you. There are folks that have been developing forever. For instance, Sylvan, he's been doing stuff for OS2 forever. He bought Enjoy relatively recently. But he's just been an OS2 business partner for a long, long time and done things I don't even know about. Drury did the original MySQL ports, which we all used for a long, long time. Paul has sort of taken it over. And Yuri's now working on OpenOffice.org. People like Perwick, he's got his ePDF and all that sort of stuff. And he's associated with Bitwise Works. So they're both new and old. Sometimes they're just, like I say, they're new to the users because you guys aren't developers. You don't speak to the developers in general. And a lot of them tend to hide in caves. And the same thing with the companies. In other words, Bitwise has been around forever, and you've been around forever, but for one reason or another, you never heard of them. And the way what Arca plans on doing is cross-licensing. Basically, and it just keeps things simpler. Rather than just verbal agreements and letting things happen, you just write it down so everybody understands it and everybody's comfortable with it. A lot of times the cross-licensing will not even involve fees. It just says, okay, it's okay for you to put this in your distribution. And some will involve funding. Really, everybody has different needs. Everybody has different desires. Some people don't want to be funded because they feel they're more free. Because once you're paid for something, they can sort of tell you what to do. But if you do it for free, you do what you want to do. And and every OS2 user is different. Some are more different than others. But it's a good thing. Any questions? Okay, what are we going to do here in terms of what you can actually get? Or you're going to be, in some ways, it won't be all that much different than what you could have gotten from Mensis back when they had a lot of new stuff to provide. You'll be able to get your packages individually if you need it. You only need one driver updated. Everything else is run fine. You just buy that driver for whatever it is. And then you'll be able to get it in bundles. USB is probably going to be something like that because just the way USB is, if you upgrade one USB driver, you really have to upgrade them all. Sort of like a match set. And it just works better that way because it's all tested and all that. And then there are the plans for a software subscription service too, which basically means you prepay for the stuff. And you believe we'll ship the stuff out. If we don't, or they don't, you stop paying. Now, obviously, you're going to be getting drivers and stuff like that, not a full OS2 release, unless we do some sort of cross-licensing with Mensis where, our subscription includes the next release of ECS. Don't know. Anything's possible. We're still early in this. because in terms of being a company, you know, the idea's been around probably maybe 3-4 months. I can't really remember when everybody started saying, yeah, we really need to have a company. And, you know, but it takes a while, you know. LLCs take a little time to set up, and also Lewis, because of his nature as a businessman, you know, he does a lot of stuff that require real contracts. So, you know, you have to go with the flow and sort of do it his way because he's a manager. He's managing director. He's running the show. We'll also, you know, assist in software deployment and consulting, and that's more for the corporate customers that need us. Software resale by the rev shop, you know, that's, you know, again, that's back to the last page. Drivers, this, that, applications. We'll probably also even be able to distribute a lot of free stuff too. Things that just so you can go to one place instead of having to go hunt down that certain widely used applications at Hobbs, OS2 site, we'll make them available as a web shop. You know, maybe there'll be a donation for the developer, but you know, it'll be essentially free or donation where a lot of the stuff we do is, you know, it's open source, so anybody can build it. But what we do, and Arca does as a service, is we build something, we provide something that quote unquote tested and should work, and support it and provide a certain amount of support if it doesn't work. And for that, you know, you pay a little bit. For instance, when the AHCI driver is open source. 1 or 2 people actually built it. But of course, that's great for the folks, and it's on Hobbs. But people still came to Mensis because that's where the support was at the time when the stuff didn't work. And they were getting, and those builds got support under the subscription agreements that were available for the developers that were at Mensis at the time. Now that's that's moving to Arca. And then for those, you know, for corporate customers that need something special, there'll be that. Whether we're going to do anything like do hardware integration in the sense, okay, you need, for small end users where they want a system and they want something that's pre-installed, probably not going to do any of that because the current resellers are pretty good. Like Neil can find you a system and integrate it, and you've got something that's ready to go and preloaded. You know, Arca wants to be more of a development shop. Now, it doesn't mean we don't know how to do that, because that's what one of the things that Lewis does in Another Life. If you actually look at his webpage, he is a system integrator and network specialist, as well as being a CPA. Bean counter, as they say. Any questions?
I have an observation on your site now. I put something in my cart, it's got me to the section where I buy it. Can you check my cart?
As I said, it's moving along.
Yeah.
Can you will they take your credit card yet?
I don't know, I haven't tried to just put it in.
Yeah, like I'm saying. Yeah.
But it's weird, it gave me the not sign over the cart, but it still put it in the cart.
Yeah, probably no way to turn it off. Again, you are looking at the pre-production version.
Yeah.
With luck, it won't take your money. Or if it does take your money, it'll deliver.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your donation. We need the support. Okay, strategic alliances, and it's just a partial list. You know, Bitwise Workers, we already know what they are now. NetLabs, you know, has always been a partner for the OS2 community for a long time. You know, provide us with a lot of bandwidth, a lot of storage, place for everybody to go complain with their tickets and all that sort of stuff. And a bit of management too, because they used to manage the ACPI development and stuff like that. But over time, that's been taken over by other people. And Rosenthal was Lewis and his brother. And in ECO, we all know Eugene, right? Come on, don't tell me someone here doesn't know who Eugene is. Please don't.
He's done a good job.
Yeah.
Everyone knows it.
Yeah.
He's not in the cave.
Yeah. And you know, we left you out because you were here.
Yeah.
But you know, these alliances are where you find them. And you know, we sort of expect, these are ones that are sort of already in place more or less formally. You know, we expect to have an alliance with XEU too. Questions?
What is the alliance with NetLabs? Because I haven't seen the leadership on NetLabs showing on the community or communicating. For Adrian, is not showing.
You don't need to talk to be useful.
Yeah, but so it's there. So it's moving.
NetLabs basically has close to 100% uptime. Both things, when they don't work, they get fixed very quickly.
Okay.
It provides bandwidth. It provides lots of storage.
Okay.
You know, he does, and that's what counts. You know, it's easy to talk. It's easy to ask. It's a lot harder to do. And the same thing goes what you've done with GitHub. You know,
Yeah.
You've done a lot, and that's all good stuff. And you did it, and you know, we'll see. Hopefully, this will actually give a couple people the incentive to go out there and grab one of these things, build them, and add features they like. And you know, do the learning curve that it takes. But you can't, you know, you can lead people, but you can't force them to do anything. Any other questions?
Where's this company incorporated? New York or Virginia?
Delaware. If you were being a CPA, it's Delaware.
Delaware.
It's also in terms of the reason for I was given for Delaware because he actually lives in Long Island and Virginia. You know, because I think he's got offices in both places, he's got houses in both places, or something like that. But he likes Delaware for incorporation because basically, since almost the vast majority of corporations incorporated in Delaware, the corporate law is very, very stable and understandable, at least to a lawyer. Whether that's really true or not, when somebody has to go to court about something, who knows?
Yeah, I think that's a very uninternational view, that American corporations are Delaware. International corporations are New York.
Yeah, that's probably true. It makes more sense. Although it did seem like they, like a lot of them tried to disincorporate and move to Europe until they changed the tax law last year.
London. Yeah.
Yeah, well, they were trying to get away with taxes, then all of a sudden IRS said, no, you're not going to do that so
Yeah,
quickly.
the taxes thing, but
When it comes to money, we're going to make a change.
But when it comes to a lawsuit, you really want to be in London.
Yeah, better.
You know, because it'll be decided under British law.
Yeah.
It's not, you know, and if you're in the United States, under New York law. You don't want to be something else.
Yeah. Actually, my theory is, you know, you draw up the contracts in such a way that you never really need to fight about it. If everybody, you know, you can't predict the future, but I've never had to litigate over any of my contracts. I'm small, but you know, I've had some fairly significant contracts, fixed price with very stringent demands because some of it's been aerospace.
Yeah.
You know, it goes, you build it, you finish it, you get paid for it, and 2 years later, if it doesn't work on launch, it's your job to sit there on July 4th and tell them why it didn't work.
Right.
Of course, it wasn't my stuff that didn't work, but I was there on July 4th when the telescope wouldn't spin because somebody put insulation on it. That wasn't in the original spec. They thought they needed a little extra. It ran in, and this was a big old D-spin telescope. And it had something that looked like a tuning fork with the telescope. And the insulation ran into the tuning fork and wouldn't turn. And this thing was unidirectional. We figured it out. We got it fixed, but basically beat on it a little bit until the insulation wore down. You know, but you can go. No space shuttle was sent up there.
Yeah.
But you know, that's the type of stuff that happens. You know, so I'm used to that sort of stuff. But it's just much easier not to have to fight about it. And that's more a matter of everybody understanding things the same way. And that's always my goal with contracts. Not so much so you go fight about them, but so to make sure that everybody really understands things the same way. Okay, projects, drivers. Well, David told you all about these anyway. Any other questions?
So do you think next year Warpstock will actually be able to use wireless or what?
Be able to use what?
Wireless in this room?
Well, I can use wireless as soon as, and everybody, and most people can if Todd leaves and turns off his hardware. An unintended consequence of technology.
Well, I have a ThinkPad, you know, it's a pretty, it's not an oddball machine. I can't use the wireless.
I am.
Yeah.
In my
Well,
computer, no, what do you mean, it doesn't work?
Well, the thing I can tell you though is this is not the place to get it fixed.
Yeah.
You should have been on the OS2 wireless list when you first had this problem, which you've had for how long?
Since I got the computer.
Which was how long ago?
Well, 3 years ago.
Okay, 3 years ago, you should have showed up on the OS2 wireless list. And by now, it probably would have been solved. Because we don't know what the solution is until we know what the problem is. Saying it doesn't work is like saying, guy, it's cloudy. It's a big world out there. There's lots of types of clouds. Now, I don't have, for me, I'm a little harsh about this, but there are solutions out there, and they've been there. And, you know, I just don't understand. I've yet to figure out why people can't find this stuff.
Put it the other way. What are the chances 1 year from now that a random wireless card is going to work on ECS?
Random, probably 5%. The major manufacturers, probably 90%.
Well, I
Just like that,
I asked Lewis when I bought this computer which of the three he would suggest. And I bought the one he suggested because he thought that would be supported sooner. Now you're telling me I'm an idiot for not.
Okay.
I mean, it's a pretty common piece of hardware, I think.
Yeah, but see, you don't even know if we could patch the current Gen Mac to work with that card.
Yeah.
There are an infinite way, there is a lot you can do with the current Gen Mac, even without Source. My friend Jerry Rash, who's the master dabbler with this sort of stuff, you know, he will do things like, he'll find out that, well, if I use the int8 debug parameter and connect it, and then immediately disconnect, wait 30 seconds and connect it again, it'll work until I reboot. Yeah. Well, he used to do this with video cards. Back in the day when you never knew which image capture card would work, he'd go down to the swap meet, buy 20 of them, start swapping them in, fiddle with them until he found the subset that worked. And the audio too, because that's his thing. That's what he used to do. Doesn't do it so much anymore, but you know, he's still there and he's still a user. The thing is, like everybody else, he's busy, so you're not going to see him on the list.
Yeah.
But he, you know, I talk to him all the time. He's my good buddy. But and the thing is, I can bounce things off and get information. But the thing is, I can't. None of us on the wireless list can know you have a problem unless you show up. Yeah, I'm surprised Lewis didn't want you there because the wireless list was around 3 years ago.
I've never heard of it.
Never heard of it?
Yeah.
That's his list.
Yeah.
It's Lewis's list.
Yeah, I know. Well, you know, tough to be
So what's the wireless list? I've never heard of this. What is it?
It's an email news list.
A
When,
listserv, one of those things?
Yeah.
Right.
mailman.
So that's how you get a driver, is you go on a listserv somewhere?
No,
No.
that's how you get support to a wireless card that doesn't work. That may be able to be made to work with a little bit of tweaking of parameters.
Okay.
Maybe.
I would have had no idea. Pick a chance.
Maybe is the keyword. Maybe.
Don't
forget the
word.
Yeah. But you see, you've had that thing for 3 years, and I had no clue you had a problem. If you told me last year at Warpstock, I would have told you the same thing.
Well,
Or the year
I made the
before.
mistake of speaking to Lewis, I guess.
He was probably busy or distracted. You know, I might not always give you the right answer either, but you know. I tend to be good at delegating when I don't want to do it myself. Any other questions with these guys?
There is one question on the chat room that says about the framework that David is doing with the BSD code to run the network drivers or to run the drivers. If that framework is going to be open source for anybody to use it and translate the drivers there.
No, it can't be open source because as he explained, it's based on DDK
Okay.
code. Now, anybody with a DDK license is free to use it.
Okay.
Yeah, call out, find a copy of the DDK license and read it. If you can't,
Yeah,
you
I
drop me
read.
an email and I'll give you a copy.
No, I read it, but is there a chance if anybody has a copy of the DK license for you to validate so you can send in the code, or it's going to be exclusive?
DDK license, the DDK source code can only be used by people legally. Okay,
Yeah.
you can do whatever you want. Okay, I'm not going to call IBM on it. But I do adhere to the DDK license because it serves my interest. I don't need somebody random getting mad at me because I violated their license. I don't gain anything from it. Okay, but the DDK license says that it may be used only. First of all, you can't distribute the source. Now, yes, it's true that there is source code out there. You can find copies of the DDK that's been uploaded places. Is it legal? No. Is IBM going to do anything about it? Who knows? But, you know, it's not something I promote. And if you have a DDK license, you are allowed to use that DDK, which includes all the tools and all that sort of stuff, to build drivers for OS2 only. You can't use it for other platforms.
Yeah, but the idea if Arc Nova is going to share.
Those libraries are built with the DDK. They must, the binaries must adhere to the terms of the library. You can give away the binaries.
Yeah.
Those are freely available. But the only people who are going to be able to use them are the folks with the headers with the DDK and the proper tools to run the compilers and all that sort of stuff. Now, it's a little better than that in the sense that Open Watcom has a set of open source headers that support a subset of the DDK, and they may support enough of a subset so you can build up the rest yourself. And we are using Open Watcom to build this stuff because it does a good job building 16 and 32-bit drivers. It's actually what we use for the ACPI too. But you know, it's not perfect. One of these days I need to do what David and I call semi-flat stack. The ACPI has a funny flat stack. Normal flat stack is all 4 gig. Semi-flat is not all 4 gig. And that's great as long as no one else uses EPP to access stuff, something off of the drawn selector. That's what, you know, that's what they'll use EPP as a work register. And all of a sudden they can't access data that they could access using EBS. Yeah, that type of problem. But that's a code generation problem because there's just no way to tell the compiler to generate the code that way. And it's a hard enough problem that I haven't really had the incentive to fix it yet. I was hoping I could convince McCall to do it, but he has no need for it, so he hasn't done it.
Okay. We've got about 15 minutes.
Okay, well, I think we are basically done. Any questions on this? Okay, now the other side of it is why we do these drivers, so we can run our applications. And the type of things that we're working on are Firefox, Biggie, you all want to run your browser. Didn't mention this, but you know, a side effect of the Firefox development is Dave Eo goes off and does CMonkey and Thunderbird builds for those folks that want that. Then there's going to be OpenOffice, and that thing is, from what I hear, it's close to GA. I don't know because I haven't had time to install it. I probably should because the problem is
Is that based on the OpenOffice code or?
It's based on Apache OpenOffice. As soon as Apache OpenOffice appeared, everybody smart went over there and started using that stuff because it's got a better license and it's unencumbered.
Yeah.
Well, I found LibreOffice to be better than OpenOffice.
It was when Sun owned OpenOffice. Once Sun gave OpenOffice to Apache Office, the game changed that day.
Okay.
And I don't know if the folks that are doing LibreOffice have all moved over, or you know, just pride of ownership makes them continue. Because you know, some people like their forks, even if there's no real benefit. It's just that's fine if they want to do it. You know.
I understood they also removed all the OS2 specific code from LibreOffice did. Just
I don't know.
We talked about yesterday.
It's but I do know that somebody by the name of Yuri has commit rights to the Apache OpenOffice.
Excellent.
We're okay. But see, that's the thing. That's one of the problems we have as developers. Because we're limited, we aren't as visible as we should be to the open source community. Now, some of them are never going to take our inputs. They just, you know, they don't want it. But other ones, if you are visible enough and you talk with them and you're good and you generate good commits, they'll take it. Like one of these days, and maybe Paul will mention it, we may get our OS2 changes back into the Apache HTTP derivative. Because Brian Harvard used to have commit rights back for the EMX version. But he's not really doing that stuff much anymore, but he's offered to talk to people. And Paul, you know, will do the commits right. It's just a matter, you know, he doesn't have that much time. He's got this day job where he's got 200 people to manage.
Yeah.
But summer's coming, and it must be almost vacation time, so we'll see what happens. And the other thing we're doing is, we recognize that for a lot of users, some of the tools like the Samba setup, the RPM command line and all that, it's just hard for them. Even though you only maybe need a small half-dozen set of commands, it's hard for people to write those down and remember those. So, the plan is for more Drury frames. Alex Taylor is working on one for RPM Yum, and I think he posted like a preview of it. Thought of doing one for Samba too, that are more than what we currently have with the SCC. So we'll see. It's just all time. It's all a matter of what's got the highest priority and getting the people with the skills to do it. And it's always a balancing act. Any other questions on applications?
With Firefox, what's the deal with kind of having this, well, maybe renegade's the wrong term, but it's, if it's not a Mozilla-sponsored project kind of, is there any problems with that, or
no,
anybody's free to do this?
It's open. It's under the Mozilla 2.0 license. We're allowed to do anything we want. If we distribute, we are required to distribute our changes to their code. But the Mozilla license is interesting because it only requires you to contribute back your modifications to the open source code. You can actually do proprietary parts if you want. Not what we encourage, but companies have their reasons for doing what they're doing. You don't have to agree with them, but if you want their product, you have to go along with it. So it allows that combination. Now, the fact is that the Firefox Mozilla Foundation doesn't want our changes. But we've got a system that makes it fairly easy to drop in new versions, merge the changes, and all that sort of stuff. We use Git for that.
The only thing that could come up is they might come and tell us we can't use the name Firefox.
They've sort of already done that, haven't they?
I haven't heard you say so.
Or they may have changed that. I know what you're saying. At one point in time, we had them call it, PW. All right.
Well, that was Peter's idea to keep the.
No, there was branding issues too. We couldn't use their icon and all that. But I have a feeling that some of that's changed, or the folks that are doing the builds don't care.
Yeah.
But hey, if we got to call it Warpfox, we'll call it Warpfox.
Yeah. I'm just saying that at some
or
point
Arc
they
Fox.
might. Yeah.
Or Noah Fox. Yeah, those things are minor details. That's not going to stop us from doing the build.
That's about the only thing that they really could because of the license.
Yeah, but again, that's not really, those are not showstopper problems.
No, it's not
just something we may have to do to accommodate them. Yes.
But that's the only thing that
the license. Yeah, I agree. I just haven't looked at that stuff lately, and based on the fact that it seems like no one's complained, and they got a lot of people that would see and look, I don't think it's a problem.
I doubt it.
Yeah. And who knows, maybe they'll start taking OS2 patches again. The big problem is the thing they don't like is if-defs. If it was just code, if platform equal OS2 and it wasn't too bulky and all that, they would probably take them. But we got big wads of stuff where it's if OS2. And it's in the middle of their common code. It's not in our OS, blah, 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 OS2 file.
Yeah.
And that makes it harder for them psychologically to accept the patches. Okay, let's see. What else? We got anything more down here? Nope, guess not.
Good job.
Maybe we tell them to be a little more cross-platform.
Well, they are cross-platform. They run on Windows and Linux.
Yeah.
And Android.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they run on iPhone.
No, very much not.
Yeah, different code base.
Apple won't permit Gecko on iOS. Apple won't permit Gecko on OS. You're on iOS in your browser, you have to use WebKit.
It's their sandbox,
Yeah,
I don't.
that's right.
So if I own my phone, then there's no way I can put that on there?
What? Right.
Yeah. Well, wait a second. Yeah, you can jailbreak it.
Yeah, you can jailbreak.
But you can't do it without violating the warranty.
I was saying,
Yeah.
And getting them to say, bad, bad.
And you'll have to compile it yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, and work out the porting.
Adrenal and shit.
Nobody at Firefox is helping you.
Steve, on the internet, they just say hi to you. They don't dare to question.
Hi, everybody. Wherever you are.
Yeah, they don't even dare to.
What do you got, 2 people on IRC right now? 2 people watching?
We have, beside all my family that was connected,
Yeah, I know you had to pay them.
yeah, there are 20 online right now watching you.
Yes, and no, I mean, the problem is that Firefox is the gecko. I mean,
Yeah.
that is to say that you can come on here not as yourself. Right. It's just,
They still on San you just say, if you want to be a web browser, come here to the database. So sell it. I'm just right here. A web browser.
You define the windows, right?
Oh, it says.
Still doing it. I better get out of here before everybody goes.
Are we ready to accept?
Anytime. We can get
No, I
out of
mean,
here.
Andy,
Oh, this call shouldn't up yet.
no, I don't think so.
It's early.
We shouldn't have him for another 8 minutes.
Oh, okay.
But, you know.
And these guys will all run out of questions.
With David, yeah. What is David?
I know. I'm getting that funky,